Hello, everyone. It's no secret that men are struggling a lot today. You see this push that therapy is supposed to be the solution for so many of men's problems if they just attend it. But is that really the case? In today's video, I'm going to look at two articles written by the same woman, one from a male perspective and one from a female perspective. And I'm going to use those to justify the statement that not only is therapy not beneficial to most men, but in fact, it's actually harmful. Let's get started. So, this is the first article, and this is the one written from a male perspective, and this is the author of both of them, Dr. Alicia Walker. So, let's first hear from her why she thinks men cheat. Men's infidelity often isn't about sex. It's about wanting to feel seen, valued, and wanted. I'd actually argue that that's probably correct. I think that that is a huge factor, if not the majority factor, why most men cheat. And I'm even going to read, she puts some comments from men, and I'm going to put it right here. Mark 38 explained, I'll do the dishes or run the kids to practice, and it's like nothing. No thanks, no praise. I could be drowning in plain sight, and she wouldn't notice. And Paul 40 says, I try to help her out with the chores. But if I don't get a thank you or some kind of response, I spiral. I feel like I'm failing, like I'm just one more thing she has to tolerate. And I think that's so important because men often, even men that don't cheat, often have this feeling that their women or their wives or their girlfriends, if they're not married, are just tolerating them. So, completely understandable. I feel like she nailed this pretty well. My second question here is where does she put the blame for men cheating? And you'll see right off the bat here where she's going. I'm going to first read a little bit of this section under what is relational management. In heterosexual relationships, women are often the default providers of this labor, the daily emotional tuning that keeps the relationship intact. This expectation isn't negotiated or mutual. It's quietly built into the emotional architecture of many heterosexual relationships. Women are often doing this work constantly. The problem is that it's unreciprocated and treated like a natural extension of who they're supposed to be. So, pretty much, she's saying that men are expecting emotional support from their wives, and wives are saying, oh, that this is too much work on us, or men never give us anything in return. I disagree with that, but let's continue and go down here. In other words, the breakdown of the relational management didn't just change their relationships, it changed how they saw themselves. They weren't getting the validation they expected, but rather than voice that, they acted out. Instead, they went looking for someone who reflected back a better version of themselves. So, pretty much, men are responsible for men cheating, for their own cheating. Basically, they are expecting too much emotional support from their women, and so they act out and they do the deed. Okay, so third point, how does she feel about cheating as a whole, at least in this article? Pretty cut and dry. This doesn't excuse the behavior. Well, you can't get much clearer than that. And then if we go down here a little bit till near the bottom of the article, it's not about letting anyone off the hook. This doesn't excuse betrayal or soften the harm. Pretty consistent message. So she does not support cheating, and I agree with that. I don't think cheating is good really under any circumstance. But with that in mind, let's now look at the other article that she has where she takes the cheating perspective from the woman's side. All right. So here's this article, which she did a couple weeks prior to the one we just looked at. I want to look at the same 3 points that I brought up in the first article. The first one being, why do women cheat? Now, she kind of also puts that pretty clearly here in her key points. Some women cheat not to leave their marriage, but to stay when sex conversations stall and needs go unmet. Research shows that women's desire fades in long term relationships but sparks back to life with novelty. And if I recall correctly, here's what I wanted to add. We like to think of monogamy as the gold standard, the default setting for fulfilling relationships. But for many women, it slowly suffocates their sexual desire or leaves them in marriages where sex disappears altogether. The assumption has always been that men have higher sex drives, but research tells a different story. Studies show that in long term relationships, it is a woman's sexual desire that tanks the hardest, but not because their libidos are naturally lower. And I think she also says here, yep. At the same time, research shows that while their desire for a long term partner dwindles, women often experience a surge in sexual interest when something new enters the picture. So it's not that they lose interest in sex, it's that their current situation isn't lighting their fire. So basically, women cheat because they want their sexual experiences to be exciting and fulfilling, and when they're in a relationship, things get dull and boring. So basically, they're not getting a thrill, would be the best way to put it. Quite a different take than the reason that men cheat. Now, second question, where does she put the blame for women cheating? And I think we probably know what she's going to say, but let's read exactly the words that Alicia puts here. The women I interviewed weren't looking for a way out. They loved their spouses, valued their families, and had no interest in blowing up their lives. But they were trapped, feeling frustrated, unfulfilled, and out of options. Rather than torching their marriages, they found a workaround. And I think if we go down here, they had tried to communicate their needs, but nothing changed. Rather than stewing in frustration and resentment, they found their affairs allowed them to meet their needs elsewhere, easing tensions at home and helping them stay in their marriages. Well, so when women cheat, it's because they have tried, I guess, every option. And the only option they can see to stay in their relationship is to cheat because they have done everything. And I guess they're saying that the men just aren't listening to them, aren't helping them, aren't following through. I don't know. But regardless, the blame is squarely put on the fact that men are not doing something with their women. They're not giving them enough excitement, enough thrills. And so these women feel that they have to go elsewhere to get their sexual needs met. Interesting. And then lastly, let's see how Alicia here, Dr. Walker, feels about cheating. We know how she felt about cheating in the men's article. How does she feel about it here? Infidelity is almost always framed as a betrayal, a dagger to the heart of a marriage. But what if for some women, cheating is actually the thing that keeps their marriage together? And then, if we go down to the summary, or to the last part of it, instead of treating every episode of infidelity as a scandal or moral failing, maybe we should be asking a different question. How can marriages evolve to actually meet both partners' needs before one or the other partner starts looking outside of it to meet their needs? Well, well, well. So, let's summarize what Dr. Walker here has said. When men cheat because they don't feel valued in their relationship, they don't feel supported by their wives, and they look for it outside the marriage. When women cheat because their sexual desires aren't being fulfilled, and so they need something new and exciting to get their, as she puts it, to light their fire. When men cheat, it's men's fault because they are expecting too much emotional support from their women, and rather than talking to their wives, they just choose to act out. When women cheat, it's also men's fault because men somehow the women are talking and doing all of this work to try to get the relationship back on track and to get their needs met. And for whatever reason, she doesn't specify it there, those needs aren't being met. Finally, when men cheat, it's a betrayal of trust for their wives. When women cheat, it's a desperate act of love to try to keep the relationship together. Can anyone see the double standard that we have here? Because I can. It's crystal clear. So, what is the takeaway for men? Bottom line is, most men aren't going to go to therapy because of this double standard. They're already having issues with their wives if they go to therapy, at least they go to marriage counseling. So when they go to marriage counseling, now they're going to have both their wife and potentially their therapist ganging up on them. Is that really going to make the situation better? And even if they're not in a relationship or in a marriage, you can see that there is such a huge double standard that when women do something bad, it's empowering. When men do something bad, it's just bad. Worse, we have to deal with the fact that counseling and therapy, the overwhelming majority of those practicing it are women. Yes, there are some men out there, and certainly you can find them. They're not that hard to find. But keep in mind, the whole profession is skewed incredibly liberal, which means that even if you do find a male therapist, there is a better than likely chance that he is going to automatically support the woman no matter what the situation is, even if she is completely wrong. So, does this really help men? Does this really make men better when not only are they going to be chastised by their wives, but then when they go to therapy to try to work through their problems, they're also going to be chastised by their therapist under every circumstance? It's ridiculous. So, for the time being, men aren't going to go to therapy. And what's really terrible about that is that I do think that in some cases, therapy can be useful. There is value to therapy, and I've seen therapy definitely help other men. The problem is, with such a double standard in therapy, men are going to choose to look elsewhere. They're going to, talk to their male friends, hopefully if they have them. They're going to try to find other sources to help them solve their problems. But whether those are going to be good or not certainly remains to be seen. I actually have a couple of articles related to alternative stuff like that, and hopefully I can get those reviewed and put those into a future video. If you like the content that I've provided here, please subscribe to the channel so you can know when my next video drops. Please like and share this content with others. It's going to be word of mouth that helps this channel to grow. Please check out the other videos on my channel, and I will see you all in the future. Take care.